All right, so hi Stella, and welcome everyone to another session of the Horn Show. And this time we're having someone really exciting, and we're going to be speaking about a really exciting topic. And her name is Stella Ahaabwa. I hope I've pronounced that right. And she's currently living in Uganda. So I'm going to hand it over to her to introduce herself, speak a little bit about what she does, and then we can take it from there. So, Stella, over to you.
Hi, Maria. Thanks for reaching out to me to first of all get into your show and also to kind of like showcase some of the work that I do. So, hi everyone. My name is Stella, and a lawyer by training, but also an education advocate. And I also do some work with the Education Plus Foundation. And what we do is advocate for education for children who are aged between 3 to 7, but also out of school children and mothers as well. So we focus not just on formal education, but also informal education. So out of classroom learning, and that's through literacy training and numeracy training, but also early childhood education, which is the biggest project that we work with.
Okay, could you
Yeah,
just
that's
explain a little
pretty
bit
much it.
what's early childhood education for some people who don't know what that is?
Okay, so this is the training that we give children who are between 3 and 7 years old to kind of build them socially, cognitively through different areas like, play or counting and interaction, social interaction with their fellow peers. And for most people, they'll know it as kindergarten or nursery school. So what you did in kindergarten is what we refer to as early childhood education.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
call it pre-K here. And it's really
Yes,
great that
pre-K in
you're,
some
yeah,
areas.
it's really great that you're doing something on education. I think not very many people I know have devoted a lot of their time to that, and I think it's impressive that you are focused on doing that. So thanks for starting that foundation.
So,
So the topic we'll be speaking about for those who are viewing us is philanthropy, which I think is underrated topic, especially in developing countries, but a very interesting one when it comes to dealing with social issues in our culture and communities. So I just wanted to understand from your perspective, what is philanthropy to you?
okay, so for me, really, philanthropy is not. When people hear philanthropy, the first thing that comes to their minds is money and this kind of thing. But for me, philanthropy is the voluntary giving a part of yourself to people you feel need it the most. So it can be through, for example, tangible things like money or goods and products, but it can also be through intangible things such as acts of service, volunteering your time, for example. This is what philanthropy is to me, giving a part of yourself to people you feel need it the most, or people you perceive as needing it the most.
And what drove you to be active in that field or in that sector, especially in a place like Uganda?
Okay, so for me, philanthropy was mostly about giving back to the community, which is also the underlying theme or the underlying idea around philanthropy. But what drew me to it in particular was about causes that are not really popular to, for example, governments. If you look at the areas that we're working in, that's early childhood education. It's not an area that's really been focused on. We have universal primary education, and this starts from P1, primary one, to primary seven, but we've not really done much on universal early childhood education. So for me, it was a way of eh, introducing myself into this area that's been almost neglected, but is really crucial. So that is what drew me to philanthropy, really giving back to causes that have not been given much attention to. I see it as an opportunity, really, an opportunity
Okay.
to bring this up and to highlight the work that needs to be done in these areas.
hmm And going back to
Yeah.
your work with Education Plus, do you think that
Mm.
what do you think about the quality of education in Uganda? Do you think it's up to standard with like other countries and the developing world, or can more be done?
I think there's room for improvement, to be honest. And Well, the government has done what it has done in terms of like, trying to increase the access of education. But I think that increasing the access of education is not enough. We also have to look at things like the quality, which have been neglected a little bit. So it's crucial. The work that we do is really crucial. And like I mentioned, we're doing early childhood education, which is neglected, but also because the first years of a child are really crucial to development. And prior to getting into this education sector, before starting the foundation, I had done work in this community in education as well, but then on the primary and secondary level. But based on the work that we did, it was very evident that some of the children were dropping out of school because they hadn't had a foundation. They hadn't had a good foundation. So they stayed at home until they were 7, and then they were forced to go to school at age 7 to catch up with people who had had an opportunity to study, that to get some sort of training or instruction in the early years. So for me, this is crucial. And I think that while the government has done a lot, which is great, there's still room for improvement. And it's hard to even compare to other countries.
Yeah,
It's not
and
enough to have access.
yeah, I agree with you. I think also maybe one of the things I saw when I was still in Uganda was the affordability of education. And
Yeah,
I appreciate what you're doing with your foundation, because I know that you also sponsor children to
yeah.
go to school. So I'm just wondering if you could, I know I'm putting you on the spot on this, and we're supposed to be speaking
It's
about
okay.
philanthropy, but I'm kind of intrigued. And I just
Yeah.
wanted to know, perhaps, how have you been able to solve the challenge of access to education, especially for the girls? Because we know a lot of them end up staying home for a longer period, and they have a hard time catching up when they go to school at a later age.
Yeah. Okay, so to start with, our school is actually free. So we offer free early childhood training. So that hasn't really been an issue. And what we've been trying to do for children who sort of perform better than others, we try to link them up to sponsors, but we're also trying to develop a branch into further education that we are trying to offer to people. It's not easy. Of course, it's not easy because, the more classes you have, the more teachers you have, and the more you have to pay. And because it's a free school, there's not really set, there's no external source of income. So
Mm-hmm.
it makes it really hard. But we try to create opportunities in terms of, for example, trying to find sponsors for children or partnering with other schools in the community to offer this training for children. We will offer some, if we come to an agreement with a school, for example, we can offer free childhood education and then give them the best in the class. So they're able to take them on because they feel like it's an addition to the school. So we might not pay for it, but because they feel like they're taking on the best students, it's kind of like a win for them. So we try to link children to the different schools that we work with to make it easier for them to access education. But it's all still, free. It's not easy, but we try
I
to.
know.
It's not always easy, but we try to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, the
And then like,
important. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to talk about the other project that we do, which is the out of school training. So the
Yeah.
children who have completely dropped out of school or who haven't had any training, but they can't fit into a class of a 3-year-old, for example. You can't put a child who's 8 in the same class as a 3-year-old child.
Mm.
The levels of understanding are completely different. Even the method of delivering the training has to be different. So what we do is we have an out of school program where we have these children who are out of school between 8 and 13 years old. We give them their own separate training in numeracy and literacy. And in a way, it's trying to bring them up to scale with the rest of the children who've had access to this education. And that way they're able to integrate into the universal primary education and still catch up and be able to continue education without feeling the need to drop out.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And do you think that
Yeah.
the now with the COVID pandemic, has it affected your work in any way, especially with the children going to school? Or okay, I'll ask. Do you mind elaborating?
So it's been a nightmare, to be honest, because the schools closed in March, and we had to send children back home. So we had a whole school of about 200 children, about 200 children. But when we closed, everybody had to go back home. Some live in the community, others live away. There was no way of tracking them. We thought we might be able to still have weekly, assignments for them to collect and, take and do from home. But the children went to villages, so it was hard to even give the parents work for the children to do. And so I feel like this has set us back a lot because obviously the children haven't received any training at home. Most of the children in our school have stayed home to do housework and no thought of education at all. So they've completely forgotten and lost all the training they had. It's going to be a lot of
An
work getting
uphill
them back on
battle.
track.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Oh, well, I hope maybe next year, 'cause everyone is calling it the 2021 reset. So hopefully next year things will be looking up.
I
But
hope
I'm
so.
really impressed with the work you're doing. I think you're one of the few. I have another friend in Denmark who also is into education, but I think you're one of the
Okay.
few in Uganda I know who are really focused on, helping children access quality education. So, I mean, I applaud you for doing it.
Thanks.
Okay, so I
Thank you,
think
Maria.
moving on to the next question is about philanthropy and the way that you talked about it not just being about money but also offering up your time and resources. Do you think there is enough
Hmm.
activity in countries like Uganda in towards philanthropy or giving back to the community?
Yeah, I think that the idea of philanthropy is present in our traditions anyway. The only thing is that we need to redefine what philanthropy is. Most times when people think about philanthropy, the first thing that comes to their mind, like I was telling you, is big foundations that are offering money or goods. They don't think about the little acts of service. So if you look at it in that way, it's easy to believe that there isn't really much going on in Uganda. But if you look at it in terms of like, different services, so for example, helping your neighbor where you think they need help and seeing philanthropy in that way, in terms of acts of service, acts of love, and this kind of thing, then definitely we have loads of philanthropy going on, you know. So in Uganda, I would say yes, we do. And the other thing is that, of course, like with the bigger organizations, they have more resources to amplify their work through media and this kind of thing. So that's all we see. All we're seeing is the bigger foundations doing this and that and that. And the smaller people who like make the little contributions to the community that are meaningful are not really amplified. So people feel in a way that my action is really small, it's not going to make an impact, so they shy away from it. But the fact is every little helps and people are doing things. It's just that not everybody gets the visibility they that would put their work on the map, but people are really doing things here.
So maybe what
Yeah, so
needs to happen is so do you think that more should be done to spotlight on even those who are doing little acts of kindness, on the in the media? Or because I think the reason why some of those big foundations are shown in the media is, like you said, their contribution, but also some of it is paid advertising. So
yeah.
how do you shine a light on other people who are doing small, little things here and there? And is it necessary? Because also there is another school of thought that says philanthropy really isn't about the fame and people seeing that you're doing this, but you're actually just giving out of your own goodwill.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that school of thought. I don't think it should be about amplifying the work that you're doing. Well, amplifying the work would help in terms of, getting visibility or even getting more people onto the cause and supporting it. But I think that's not the primary cause. I think the primary thing is about creating change in the community and, trying to improve the welfare of people. So it shouldn't, and it's really not about the visibility you get, even though it would help. It's more about getting more people to recognize that through their little actions that they can actually change people's lives, and through the little actions they can impact a community. You don't need to build a school, you know what I mean? You can
Mhm.
sponsor one child. Education is We have different ranges of education, but some basic education is not really that expensive. You can afford it. We can afford. Many people can afford it. They can afford to do it for the next person without it actually having a big impact. Should you get an award for it? Not necessarily. Should you be in the newspapers? Not really. It's not really about you being in the newspapers. It's about you changing someone's life, whether you get recognition or not.
Well said. I would give you an Oscar
Yeah.
for that. Okay. So what do you think about the demographics in terms of like, are there more, in your opinion, are there more men or more women in the philanthropic sector in Uganda? And also, what have been your challenges, being a philanthropist and running your organization?
Okay, so I think first of all, I I think that women are more drawn to
Giving.
philanthropy than men,
Yeah.
in my opinion and my experience. All the people that I know who are working in communities are mostly women. It comes natural. Also, it's about I think it's a natural instinct. We are naturals, we are carers. We want to see the best for people. I'm not saying men are not like that, but as women, it's something that's inborn. So you'll find that more women are drawn to things that improve other people's lives more naturally, from my experience, more naturally than, for example, men. Um, when it comes to, sorry, what was the other question?
Like
What was
the
the other
challenges
question?
you've experienced. Yeah.
Oh yes. So the challenges that I've experienced have been on a community level mostly. So it's as a philanthropist or somebody who cares about development of a community, it's easy to walk into a community and think, okay, based on what I'm seeing around, this and this is the problem. So you take the problem from what you think is the problem, and then you come up with a solution that you think is going to help this community. But the issue that I got, which was also very evident at the start, was that we didn't really consult the community. So this
Mm-hmm.
is just, you walk into a community and you say, this is your problem, I'm going to solve it for you. And it should improve, because I mean, I'm offering education, so the kids should stay in school, the kids should go on to become doctors and what, but you're not looking at the other factors. For example, how are they living at home? How are there other little things that contribute towards their development? You don't think about that. And for you, it's easy to think that the immediate problem is the lack of access to education without thinking about lack of access to, for example, food or the next meal. So for me, that was a bit of a challenge, because, this is our fourth year, but already in the first year, we saw some resistance from the community, because, okay, yeah, we're bringing school, but people don't really quite understand the importance of early childhood education, so they didn't take it seriously. And also because it was free, they didn't really see the value. So sending children to school, okay, a lot of people in the community viewed it as a daycare. It's
Right.
free daycare. You have the children from 8 to 1 o'clock. I'll go to the garden. I'll do whatever I want. So some days I'll send the child to school. Other days I won't send the child to school. They couldn't see the importance. And I think where we got it wrong was assuming that education means the same to them as it means to us.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a challenge. And I think like most people also experience that, like, walking into a community and failing to consult, but then dictating what you think is the way forward. The other thing for me was, because people didn't have so much input, they didn't really see the value, which is almost the same, but in terms of financial implication, right? So they saw it as free, yes, okay, it's free, but there's no cost for me. There's no implication for me. There's no part of me. There's no ownership, basically. So that was an issue. That was a big challenge. I think that when it comes to philanthropy, people really need to involve communities. It's not about me. We need to stop this whole superhero thing.
Yeah.
We need to stop seeing ourselves as superheroes. I'm coming to save this community from this and this issue. We need to stop thinking about that. It has to be a community. We're working together to see that this community is growing. But it's not about me, it's about the community. So while it was challenges, it was also learning points for me.
Yeah.
I
So
learned a
how
lot from
how
that.
how are you able to get the community ownership in the project? Well, it's not
Okay,
a
so to start
project.
with,
I would say it's a project because because of the impact. It's a long term impact, but still, how had you been able to get the community, to accept and embrace what you were giving them?
okay, so to start with, it was really crucial that we got a lot of the services from the community. For example, if we are making meals for the children at school, we pick somebody from the community so they would feel part of it. So, for example, our cook or the chef is from the community. Then the teachers themselves, because they know these children, they know the struggles, they've seen them growing up, they know their parents, they can talk to them and understand the struggles they go through. We chose teachers who are local to this community, and so they're able to interact on a level that we cannot as, outsiders. So these small steps are the ones that we try to integrate the community in, and also being able to involve the parents. So it's not just the training for the children, but also talking to the parents, showing them the importance of, literacy, numeracy in their different skills, in their different, in their different professions, in their different, ways of life, sources of livelihood, seeing the importance of communicating, giving them some sort of training so that they feel like it's something they're actively, working towards, helped. It really helped. Involving them helped, and also integrating some of the parents into the school board, so they're able to make decisions. For example, when the kids have their meals, how many meals they have a day, and this kind of thing. It really helped because they feel like, yes, this is a project for us, or this is something that belongs to all of us. We want to give it the best, and it's for our children. So involving them in those different roles really was the turning point in
I
the
think
project.
I think
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot from you, and I'm taking mental notes. So thanks for that answer. I also have another
Okay.
question I wanted to ask, and it's like on deciding what issues to give back
Yeah.
to. How do you
Yeah.
make that decision? Because I feel like sometimes you can easily be scammed by people who come and say, "Oh, we have this problem, and could you help us?" So how do you make that judgment?
Oh, okay, so for me, it's really been about education, straight from the work that I was doing with their world. I was an advocate for education, and through this, I was able to travel to different parts of the world and see the little thing, like, work with education, community education, in Asia, in South America, all over the world, really. So for me, it had to be education. It had to be education. I saw the impact of education. It was just this need to deepen, like, collective knowledge that drew me to education in particular, but also the fact that I was viewing education, and I still view education as a vaccine to really many things. With education, for example, women are more likely to survive HIV. Women are more likely to, work and make an income for themselves and their families. They're able to make decisions about when to have children, and in turn, their children are able to survive, for example, longer than 5 years. This kind of thing. But it's all because of education. So for me, really, it's only been education, and I've tried to
Okay.
channel everything
Mhm.
through the foundation, which is mostly education. So if it's anything education and it falls within the, our themes or the things we're trying to achieve, then I'm all for it. But strictly education.
Okay. And
Yeah.
I think maybe you answered the other question I was going to ask you about race. But I don't know
About
if
what?
you
Sorry.
race, like color
Okay.
and race,
Okay.
especially you being, a woman of color. Of course, in Africa, we're all, of a certain race, so race doesn't really play
Yeah.
a lot. But
Yeah.
here in the States, race is a really big issue, and
Mhm.
not very many philanthropists I should use the word accredited philanthropist because it's such a term here.
Mhm.
Those who are like shown in the media, and who run big foundations. Not many of them are of the uh, let me just use the word, are darker skinned. And so
Yeah.
from your experience in the philanthropic world, why do you think that is, and what do you think can be done to change it?
Yeah. So for me, I think that again, that stems from this whole idea that bigger organizations or people with more finances are able to project themselves more in comparison to, for example, people of color. But it's also the way we've been brought up. We've been brought up to think, okay, like, um, white people. We've been brought up to think that, for example, white people they're going to save us. They have more money than us. not necessarily the case, but this is the mentality that we have. So we only see help coming from the white people as worthwhile help. We really devalue the help that comes from people, but it's not always the case that, people from the West, for example, will provide more help than it's not necessarily automatic that the help that's coming from Western countries is more impactful than what people are doing here. So it's really, I think, a challenge of trying to tune our minds and change, move away from that. And I still feel this in the community. When we go to the communities, because we have a school, the people in their minds, maybe they mean it, maybe they don't mean it, but they keep saying, they refer to the school
Yeah.
as abazungu, white people,
Okay.
right? But
Yeah.
it has nothing to do. We have no Western ties at all. But for them, they just think the only person that's helping is the Western world. So it's hard for them to accept. And I don't know. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of tuning and re-educating ourselves to move away from that. But it's not necessarily that people of color are not doing much. They are, but it's just that people have already been brainwashed to think that all help must come from white people. You know? Yeah. I don't
So
know if I
it's
answered
going
your
to take a
question.
mental, yeah, you're making sense. So it's a mentality shift. We need to shift the way we
Definitely.
think. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. And
definitely.
do you
Even, I mean, like,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
I don't want to
No, no,
interrupt
no.
your
Like,
train.
I was just saying, like, so people find it really hard to accept that, that it's possible that one of us has decided to give back to us. And even for them, they might be doing small acts of kindness, like, if your neighbor doesn't have food, for example, when there's a problem in the community, people would normally come together to see that this person gets out of the problem. We still have that sense of community, especially in the rural areas. It's still really strong. In the urban areas, maybe not so much, but in rural communities, there's still that strong sense of togetherness, trying to improve everybody's welfare around you. And people don't see this as philanthropy, but really, it is philanthropy in itself, but people don't see it as that. So again, it's about redefining what we understand by philanthropy. We need to redefine that. It's not just financial. It's not about money. It's a lot more. It's a lot more. And when we understand this, we'll see that all of us can be philanthropists and all of us are philanthropists in a way. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think, in your opinion, is there anything in your opinion that we can pick, the developing world can pick from the developed world in as far as giving is concerned, or vice versa? Like, can us in the developed world pick a lift from people who are giving in the developing world?
I think for me, the most important thing is, first of all, we need to accept that we're a community. We're in this together. So when we understand that if my neighbor is not well, it's going to impact my quality of life. It's easy to it's easy to want to give or to want to elevate their life. So I feel like some communities in the West, or okay, I'll give an example of the UK. I feel like they've really understood this whole community impact. If one person succeeds, we all succeed. So they have that whole, together we're stronger mentality, which sometimes can be lacking. Sometimes it can be lacking in, like, developing communities. So I think that this is an area that we can learn from in the developing world, and it will take us a long way. It will take us far. Like, if we keep seeing each challenge as an issue that affects us, not directly, but affects how we work as a collective, it's easy to want to give back. It's easy to want to do something that will change the world.
And what
Yeah.
about us living, for example, here in the States? What can we pick? What are some of the things you think we can pick from people like you who are doing work back in Uganda?
Okay, first of all, I think that the most important thing is to not undermine any efforts that people are making. So it's not about thinking, okay, Stella is building schools or Stella is building hospitals. I must build a hospital to make an impact. No, every little thing that you do impacts a life. Every little thing that you do impacts a life. If you're For example, in the summer or during the lockdown, we had a book club. I think you attended one of the
Yeah, I did.
sessions, right?
I
And
watched
we
the
were
reading. Yeah.
yes, I really love to read. So we came together and like just little acts of coming together to read together gave people purpose, give people something to look forward to. But it's easy to think, well, I didn't change anything. It's just a small act that didn't mean anything. But we were able to actually do a lot for people, people's mental health, feeling that they were part of something bigger than themselves. So it's, I think for me, the most important thing is to not undermine whatever if you decide to do something, don't undermine the power it has to change the world. And you don't even need to change the world. Even just one life is is enough. I think it's good enough.
Yeah, well said.
Yes.
And I'm happy that you brought up the mental issue, because I was supposed to ask this earlier, but I'll ask it now. Is
Okay.
how what has been, I think it's a little bit too personal, but okay, let me try and
It's okay.
rephrase this.
Okay.
How, okay, how have you seen people's mental health being impacted in Uganda with the lockdown? Because I know there's been, well, here at least, people have been told to stay home, and sometimes you go without seeing people for a month or so, maybe even 3 months, and that can kind of affect your mood. So
Hmm.
how have you seen that happening in Uganda, especially with young people?
Yeah. No, no, no,
And
definitely. I think no, sorry, you finish.
yeah, and I was going to ask, what advice would you give to those who are struggling with mental health at this time or
Yeah.
during this pandemic?
Yeah. Well, I think that it's undeniable. The impact of the lockdown on our mental health is undeniable. But what really helped, for in my case, what really helped was being around my family, and also my dog really gave me purpose. Because
Mhm.
when we started the lockdown, I thought, okay, well, it's just a few weeks, and then somebody comes up with a solution, and then we're out of it. And so a few weeks break is not bad. I need it from work. But after 1 month, after 2 weeks, I think the first one was 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, they extended for a month, and then it started getting serious. It was still okay, it's okay. It's just a month. We're going back. But then the more they kept extending it, the less it became interesting. I mean, I tried different things. I tried to paint, I tried to cook, I tried to all these things to distract myself. But at the end of the day, I'd go back to my bed and fail to sleep because the only thing on my mind was the statistics. I was also glued to the news, by
To
the
the
way,
TV. I
completely
know
glued to
that's
the
not
news.
helpful.
I was
Yeah.
watching everything, like the statistics. I knew every day how many people have disease, how many people have, caught the infection, how many people have died, how many people are doing. So my mind was constantly awake. I was doing things, yes, and on the surface it seemed that yes, okay, everything is going okay. I mean, like there's food, there's family, there's everything, but really in my mind I was going crazy. The whole weight, the whole anxiety, and not knowing what is coming next really just got me. But what really helped for me was my dog, like I said, caring for it and having this sort of like responsibility, something to do every day. So waking up in the morning, preparing its meals, playing with it in the evening, maybe giving it a wash or things like this, taking it for a walk around, things like this. It gave me purpose, it gave me something to do. It made me feel like I was nurturing something.
Mm.
So for me that helped. But it's really the impact on mental health is crazy. I know many people struggled. I know many people struggled, and they tried to reach out to us because we also have a mental health platform
Yeah.
where we were offering free mental health advice. But when the lockdown struck, of course it was hard to maintain it. It was hard to maintain it because all the people who would be counselors were away. They were in their homes locked away. And so it was really impossible to provide the support to people who needed it. And really, I felt bad. But we had very many people reaching out to us, trying to, ask for help, how coping mechanisms and this kind of thing. But for now, people who are going through it, I'd say exercise, it helps.
Yeah.
Exercise a lot, it helps. And also, of course, eating well, your diet
Yeah.
changes. And then trying to keep in touch with people, maybe on social media. Don't uh, socially distance, yes, physical distance, yes, but not completely socially. You can still keep in touch with the world on social media, and try to find something to do. It helps to
Yeah.
distract. It helps to
I
distract yourself.
I agree with the exercise, but I think it's really important, especially to go and get fresh air. And I
Yeah.
also think the one thing that the pandemic helped with or brought to light is it forced people to interact with each other, like family members, because some like people who live in the same house but they come home at different times because of their work schedules. It forced them
Mm-hmm.
to prioritize family, and I think
Yeah.
the whole slowing down of life for me
Mm-hmm.
was an important thing, and I think it was vital because it helps you to understand what's really important to you and to realize that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes work is really a means to an end, like it's what's getting you to be happy. And so what really are your values? Is it your work, or is it your family and your loved ones? And
Mm.
I think for me
Yeah.
that kind of it gave me some clarity, because the last year was just really hectic, a lot of travel, meetings, blah blah blah, and then you have the pandemic and everything is just completely slowed down. So
Yeah.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah. No, no. I completely agree. I completely agree. And you can see that from everyone. Everybody just could not wait to get back to work. And even if it was just for a short time, people were happy to interact with other people. But, at the same time, my heart really goes out to people who were stuck home with abusers, or like, with people they don't get along with. That can't have been easy. And for them to have survived, like, really, that's commendable. It's something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, in like for the mental health part of thing, because here in the States you can actually call a hotline and someone can help you with whatever issues you're having. Do you think that that's
Yeah.
developed in Uganda as well? Do they I know it's probably also has to do with access to a phone and if you have airtime, but I think that's one thing that really helped with the mental issues here. Like if you were feeling
Yeah.
depressed, you could call your counselor and speak to them online. You didn't have to really go and see them in person. Yeah.
Mm. Well, like you said, like a lot of mental health care here is not really free. The free mental health care we have is institutional. In,
Mm-hmm.
for example, if you get taken to Butarika,
Okay.
which we all know,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you get institutionalized. Is it the best course of action most times? Maybe not. There are other ways. If you could, for example, have access to a therapist or a counselor, maybe it would help without you going. But we don't really have that. So something that we were working on before the lockdown was to start a helpline so that people would be able to call free of charge and speak to somebody, and then would be able to make referrals. But that work was halted because of the lockdown, but it's definitely something that we want to work towards, making this help accessible to people when they need it, whenever they need it. So we want to try and do that. It's something that we're definitely working on, with the different partners that we work with.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important because people. It's. I think it's one of those issues that is like stigmatized. If you have a
Hmm.
mental problem, or if you even if you're just going through depression, no one wants to, you know, they don't want other people to know that they are having this problem they're going with. Even if it's a brief depression, people just chug along, and sometimes it hurts your growth. So I feel like
Yes.
that's an issue that really needs to be developed in Uganda.
Yeah. No, no.
Yeah.
I agree. But also, I think a lot of that comes from failing to understand mental health,
Hmm. Yeah,
which is
true.
a big challenge in our community. Many people think when you say mental health in Uganda, the first thing that comes to your mind is
A
mental health
madman.
hospital, right? Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like, but
Yeah.
there's so much, and I'm not a doctor, but I mean, there's so much that goes, there's so much about mental health. It's not just having like, mental health breakdown. There are other things. People don't understand that you can be depressed. There are different kinds of mental illness,
Yeah.
There are different kinds of mental illness, and that mental health is not something you can have permanently. Sorry, mental illness is not something. Sorry,
That's
mental
you
health
can,
is something
yeah,
that we all have. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Some people have good mental health, other people are in bad mental health, but we all have mental health, and it changes. You can't be happy all the time. Sometimes you're sad, sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're different. There's a different range of emotions. But the one thing that people think when they hear mental health here is, we're taking you to the mental
Yeah.
hospital. So there's still a lot of room for improvement. We need to educate people. We need to educate people and tell them that it's okay to talk about issues. It's okay to talk about your emotions and how you're feeling and things like this. So
Yeah.
there's still a big there's still a big gap that needs to be addressed when it comes to mental health.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're winding down to the last few questions, and the one I have now is I just want you maybe to speak about what your dream and vision is for the next 10 years. In as far have you I know you know about the SDGs, right? The UN Sustainable
Yes.
Development Goals. And
Yes.
how you think philanthropy fits into that in helping to achieve them. So first, like what your dream is for the next decade, and how philanthropy can play a role.
Okay. Of course, my dream for the next decade is to make early childhood education as accessible to many people as possible. If we could make it free, in fact, for the whole country, for me, that would be an achievement of a lifetime. Well, we're doing something, but I still feel like we can do a lot more. So, being able to bring early childhood education to more communities, for me, is the ultimate goal for the next 10 years, and something that I'm working towards. And when it comes to the SDGs, I think that we have a broad range of SDGs, not just education or climate action or climate, or health. Or I think that we are all playing a little part. You just need to choose your SDG, and you can still work on all of them simultaneously. But I think that we can all play a role with the different actions that we do every day. If you're saving water, if you're saving energy, if you're saving, you know, I don't know, food, we can all contribute. We can all
Mhm.
contribute towards achieving this goal. So we need to stop looking at it as a task that's been set for governments and institutions, but a task that we can all collectively participate in order to achieve. And it's possible. It's possible. We need to look at it as our responsibility as a collective. Yeah, and I
And
think that
I would also
we'll
add
get there.
collaborating too, collaborating with each other, because I feel
Definitely.
like there's so much competition, especially with the non-profit sector, of who's going to do what and how big it's going to be and how many people are going to be impacted. But and not wanting to collaborate with other people to have a stronger impact,
Yes.
I feel is
Yes.
not a good way to look at things.
True, true. In fact, we together we can go further. You can't do something alone. We need collaboration is the only way we are going to achieve these goals. No person can say that I'm going to tackle early childhood education by myself. No, you need the community. You need partners in education. You need everybody to, if it's going to work out and work out really well in a sustainable way. We need everybody taking part. So definitely collaboration.
And you were going to say something before I interrupted you.
About education?
No,
I
I
don't
think
remember.
about philanthropy. Well, probably it probably went out the window. But um, yeah, I agree with you with the collaboration and the community involvement. And so I guess
Mhm.
my final question for you would be, what would be your last words of encouragement to young people who are trying to build a career in philanthropy or in any other career that they may be passionate about?
Okay, for me, again, which I've been saying continuously throughout the talk, is that no action is small. Every action literally makes a change. People need to stop thinking about, the big action. People keep saying, oh, maybe philanthropy is for wealthy people. And when I have I don't know how many millions in my account, then I'll contribute. But you don't really need millions. Like, you can start with what you have. Start with what you have and build on that. What you have, maybe somebody else doesn't have, and you could share, or you could make use of it to improve their lives. So it's not really about what I'll get in future, but what I have now and what I can use with what I have to change. So people need to look around and say, okay, who needs me today and how can I help them? Who needs me? What do I have that can help them? And then start doing that. Like, stop waiting for the account to grow, stop waiting to get donors, stop waiting for, I don't know, the end of 2020. Well, okay, you can wait. We only have 2 days. But
Yeah.
stop looking around. Just ask yourself, who needs me today? And then start from there. That's a good starting point. Who needs me today? How can I help with what I have? That's a good starting point.
Now, well
Yeah.
said. I
So,
think that's a really nice way to end the interview. I don't know if you might have any last words you want to say before we close up.
no, I'm just really happy that we were able to do this, even though we had some challenges at the start. But I'm really
Yeah.
happy that we were able to do this. And I promised my friends I'd give them a shout out.
Yeah,
I
sure.
gave
Go
them a shout out.
ahead.
So
Go ahead.
this is so embarrassing, but okay. So just saying hi to all my friends that are tuned in. Thanks for tuning in. I'm really happy that you were able to join us tonight, and I look forward to some positive feedback, and also I look forward to be able to support the different projects that you will start based on this conversation. So hi
Mm.
everyone, and thank you.
I'm
I
sure
just had
you've
to do that. I'm
inspired a lot
sorry.
of people. No, that's what the show is about. And I think you've inspired a lot of people to actually go out and do something in their communities, which is really what we also, why we started the show, is we want to inspire others, to start doing something where they are. So it was really
Yeah.
a pleasure talking to you. I think this is a nice way for us to end our 2020 on the show. And I'm really hoping we can get to meet in person next year or the year after, depending on how the vaccines go. But
Yes.
thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy that we were able to do this successfully.
Yeah.
Successfully. So I'm very, very happy. And also to see that we've taken,
Oh,
because we
another
also we
question.
met.
I want to take the opportunity. If people want to donate to your organization, where should they go?
Okay, we have a Facebook page and a Twitter page, so they can reach
Uh-huh.
us there, and
Okay.
then we'll be able to direct them. Yes.
Okay.
But okay, just very, very quickly. I know not very many people know this, but we went to the nonprofit academy together. And
Yes,
it's
we
really
did.
good to see that, you know,
Yeah.
we're both thriving in the different fields that we're working in, but
Yeah.
also because, like, I was really inspired by you, like, during this time, and we were able to join into this discussion. So it's really good to see that we've been able to take what we learned then and then
Mhm.
put it into practice. I think 2 years later, is it 2 years later? So
Yeah, I
I'm
think
really
so.
happy
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, yeah.
we've been
I,
able
I
to do
thank
this.
those
So,
I thank those guys for setting up that program. I learned a lot from it actually. It was one
me
of
too.
those programs that was, not very, it wasn't as like all the glamour and glitz that other programs have, but the impact was really
Yeah,
profound. And how is the Hickory doing?
definitely.
I know this is a sidetrack, but I know you run a restaurant, right? How is the Hickory doing?
No, no, the Hickory is doing really well. Like, it's run by Andrew and Aaron, and they're doing really well. They're doing really well. I think they
Okay.
want to also get into, like, giving back to the community, but it's doing really well.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Well,
you
my
have to visit the
husband
next time
says
you're in
hi.
town.
Yeah, definitely. When we come to Uganda, we'll visit it. And my husband says hi to you as well.
Hi back, hi back. Hopefully, we'll meet in Uganda at some point.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right, so it's been lovely having
Okay.
you on the show. And with that, I'm going to wish you a happy new year.
Oh yes, happy New Year to you too. Hopefully,
And
2021
thanks,
is better.
yes. And thanks to everyone who joined us and commented in the comment section. We have a lot of comments. People are thanking you, Stella, for your
Really?
work, and yeah, they're also saying the
Okay.
cause was really good. And the insight on philanthropy was very helpful. Someone thought it was all about money, but she's glad to know that it was something you can start out small. And there's something about washing hands. Do you know what that is about? No.
Washing hands.
Oh well. Anyway, there's a lot of
I'm
good
washing my hands.
there's a lot of good comments here towards your what you've been doing. So I guess people have been
Oh, thank
inspired by
you.
you. Yeah, have been inspired
Thank you so
by
much. Am
what
I able to view the comments later on?
yeah, sure. It will be live. I think it will be live both on YouTube and Facebook, and we shall also make this we shall customize it for an audio format as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
All
Thank you
right.
so much. I can't wait to read the comments.
All right. Okay. So see you and have a lovely day and a lovely new year.
Thank you so much. The same to you.
Bye.
Bye bye.